Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start now. The bell was ringing already outside, so the last one were announced that we are going to start. So a warm welcome to the 94th IREPAS meeting here in the wonderful city of Amsterdam. And to have this event on one of the most important days here in the Netherlands is certainly quite a privilege, because we are celebrating today King William Alexander's 59th birthday. And I hope you could already, or you will still experience the biggest party in Europe, which is celebrated by almost 18 million Netherlands people and a huge amount of tourists, as we all see here. So wonder whether you will see on the streets and in the restaurants mostly orange-dressed people, and of course a lot of national flags all over the places. And for your information, I have my orange hoodie in my backpack, so when this one year is over, we have to give honor to the king. So the Netherlands are very popular holiday destination, and with approximately 16 million tourists in a year, it's ranking number 21 of the most visited countries in the whole world, and this in this small country. But what can you barely find here is downhill slopes, because the highest mountain in the Netherlands is just 320 meters high, which is for people who are skiing in the Alps or in Canada, and it's no comparison. So for you, just to wrap up, the Netherlands is having two borders, one with Belgium and the other one with Germany, but it has, with the port of Rotterdam, the largest European seaport. And that is a very important trade factor and industry factor for the Netherlands, and of course for everything which is down the south of the Netherlands. And so we are starting now with the questions which came from you, and we are trying our best to answer them partly, but we also would really like if you interactively participate in this session here, and if you give your input. Also, of course, always it's appreciated if you do not agree with what the one or the other speaker says. We do not have all the wisdom here with us, so we are living from an exchange of information, and for that you are here in this room with us to get the best out of it. So let's start with the first question, and that is question number one, related to China. What will be the impact of non-VAT business result? Any changes in the market? And we have Hussein, who is working for CIEC, and you may answer this question eventually to start with, and maybe from the audience we can get some other ideas and opinions.
And first of all, welcome to our session again, Trader Committee. It's very nice to see all of you. So here, what does it mean non-VAT? As you know, in our, the export or the countries that we've been living, so whenever we make a business in local market, we've been paying for VAT. And for the export, when you make the export to some certain quantities, that quantity is exempted by the VAT. But if it's the case of the China, is whether you purchase the material for local market or for export, you have to pay for the VAT, which is 13%, 13. And there is no rebate. Rebate is removed about 4 or 5 years ago. But what we are seeing that some of the exporter in China, so they are not exempted from the VAT from the government side, but they exempt themselves, which means they don't pay tax, which is illegal. And of course, unfortunately, in the beginning, the 1st of January, there was one declaration that is going to remove. So some of the traders or the companies, exporter companies, they had a serious problem. But unfortunately, again, since last 2-3 weeks, we have seen the affection of the non-VAT businesses on the selling prices.
The reason why they went to the reduction on VAT, is it because they wanted to curb emissions and prioritize domestic supply, or is it just tax reasons?
It's actually tax businesses. For example, what happened about in January when the government is decided to focus on the export and export documents, shipping documents, invoices. Then whoever dealt with that kind of businesses, they were not able to ship the material. So there are lots of cases in the importer side that they will not receiving their material. And since it says some of the material is the raw material of the buyer, so they had some serious problem. So yes, is there any effect of the buyer? Yes, if they don't receive the material.
Any comments from your side?
Of the world, is it about the VAT that was being charged by the Chinese when they exported, or is it just is it VAT that is now included in the price?
Actually, whatever the price that you've been receiving from China, it's the 13% is included already in the price. These are the normal procedures, the procedures that it should be. But unfortunately, when we say non-VAT, which is not included. So, but in the end of the day, those companies who is dealing with the non-VAT business in China, they will be seriously facing a serious big problem from the Chinese government.
It's similar to really buying anything in Europe. VAT is included, but when you come out, there's no tax rebate. That's all.
Okay, so we continue with question number 2. What is the recent situation of steel production in China, export and import for flat and long products? Have the production capacity, utilization rate and export been reduced? Again, that's a question for you.
Okay, so here I would like to give you some idea about Chinese export and also compared to total global production in the world. So when we look at the global production, I have some figure in 2023, 2024, 25 and 26. So in order to compare what happened in 2026 compared to previous year, so I need to go with the monthly to make it clear. In 2025, the total global production was 1,800,000,000 ton. 1.8 million ton. Yes, 1.80 billion ton. That was the global production in the world. So which is monthly referring about 150 million ton monthly production. So in this 2026, the monthly production globally also 149 million, which is showing us compared to 2025, there is no big changes. But compared to 2024, we've been seeing about 3 million ton monthly less production in the globally production level. 3 million ton in a monthly, which is referring about 36 or 40 million ton in a year. So when we look at the export of to China, export of to China in 2025, the total production of to China in 2025 was 960 million ton in China. And 1 year before, in 2024, it was more than 1 billion ton. So we are also seeing is about 40 million ton reduction in Chinese production. So till now, in 2026, we've been also seeing, compared to 2024, compared to 2025 is the same quantity. But in compared to 2024, again, we've been seeing 3 million ton also production cut in China, which is referring about 40 million ton. So 40 million ton also referring a production of Turkey, which is the 7th biggest producer in the world. So those are the productions. So we've been seeing roughly 40 million ton production cut.
Yeah. So according to our findings, we saw the biggest reduction in the production in China on reinforcing bars, which is a consequence out of the real estate slowdown. And there was a sharp down by 12.3%. That is the figure which we figured out. We have heard before lunch from this gentleman from China that the numbers were a bit different to the numbers we have. But I think, yeah, it's not easy to really find the correct ones, and we have to listen to those who are either what is published or from statistics which we get. So all in all, as Hussein said, 40 million tons less, which is approximately 5%, and that is quite a big number for China.
That is actually the production. The one that we are more concerned is the exports, and I understand the exports really raise, in 2025 it was like 120 million tons, and we are seeing that there's already a reduction 3.6, 3.5%, which of course when you talk millions, it's a lot of quantity that they're reducing for exports, which is actually good news for the rest of the world steel industry.
So what the government is certainly asking for is to reduce from top down. So they want to reduce the, let's say, low quality products much more than the high end products. So they are attracting all the companies in China to use the raw materials rather for higher priced material and for more sophisticated material rather than for billets and wire rods. So that is certainly seen in the market. So we get to question number 3. Correct?
Real estate.
Oh, here it is. Is there any recovery on real estate sector?
Actually, in China, the reply is no, because 2026 till now, starting from January to May, figures same as to 2025 figures, the trend. So we made also a study to give you the more specific numbers. For example, in 2025 compared to 2024, real estate development investment came down by 5.20%. And commercial housing sales area, the area that they are building up, it also came down 8.5%. And commercial housing sales value came down 6.8%. And the list is going down to minus. The only thing that is positive in list is inventory, which is 8.70%. So which is the houses ready but not sold compared to 2024. So still the issue real estate, unfortunately, when you go to China, you've been seeing some building, but which is not finished yet.
Hussein, I read somewhere that the first quarter 2026, the real estate investment went down like 11%. Is that real? And the shift changed from really from the new construction to revitalizing existing structures and all that.
Yes, unfortunately, we know that the biggest real estate company in China, government companies, so they also bankrupt as well. They were in the stock exchange, but their value became very close to zero.
It's evergreen.
Yes,
It's bankrupt for 5 years now.
yes. And it's still, I mean, the government didn't recover the company.
It was a big surprise that they did not recover this company. And yeah, but what you can see in China is definitely that the first tier categories and cities like Shanghai, Beijing, and so on, that you see in the real estate like a U graph. Yeah, so it came down quite significantly, but it's now on a way up, not as much as before, but it's going slightly up. But on the second tier territories in China, you really have the L graph where it's really fell down, and it's now like a flatliner, and there is so far no expectation when this is going to change.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments from anyone here? If not, let's continue with question number 4. Again, China. What are the changes in 2024, 25, and 26 production in China? I think we went through these numbers already in question number 2, so maybe we can skip that and go straight to question number 5. What are the changes in 24, 25, 26, import and export of China for long products, flat products, and total exports? I think yeah, most of the questions had been answered already previously, or do you want to?
I mean, when we talk about the import of China, because what we always say that the growth rate of China is important to import, to open the window for the import. So what we say that for the 2-digit, more than 10% and above, if China is having the growth rate, then China has a chance to import. But nowadays, we are seeing about 4.5% growth rate on the paper. And so that's the reason that we don't see any intention from China to import. So China is more in the export side. For example, 3 years ago, China was exporting 6% of their total production. But now, especially in 2024, 12%, gone up more than 10%. And flat product represents about 55-60% of total Chinese export. Only long product represents about 15%. Actually, those number of the export of China, which is give us an idea of the global market. Because all of our businesses, for the long businesses, to export some transactions, the transactions that we used to do it for the long product, it start to come down because became a more localized, which is also clearly showing in the export figure of the long product, only 15%.
But Hussein, I don't think it is totally related with the world market. I mean, I think it's China by itself decides to, export more or decrease the exports, because in 2024 they exported like 95 million. 2025 they went up to 120 million, and from what I understand now they're reduced dramatically, 3-5%. So obviously the world didn't change. What's changing is their internal policies. From what I see, I don't know. You know better.
I agree, but the thing is, when we look at the China, it's not a matter of only China, because Southeast Asia became also serious players. And most of the time, we see that the Southeast Asia players' price level more attractive than China. So, which is also affecting the China export. But in the end of the day, in Southeast Asia players, also Chinese investment as well.
Good. Let's continue with the next question. Is there any expectation of production cut in China? What are the utilization rates in 26 compared to previous years?
The production cuts, which we have already talked, which is 40 million ton in 2025. And so far, the figure in 2026 that we are seeing for the production is also same as 2025, which is also showing that 40 million ton doesn't look like it's going to recover. Is that the extra further production cut is possible because of the reason China has been facing some barriers, anti-dumping cases, import taxes. So that's the reason it's directly is affecting the Chinese export. Utilization rate in China is quite high. We can say 88%, 89%, still Chinese having the utilization rate.
That's pretty high. And the current stock levels in China?
In China, as we all know, unfortunately, the war in Iran, and so it affected also Iran export. So the Iran export, as we know, is a yearly 10 million ton. And the main market of the Iran was Middle East and also Southeast Asia, especially for the billets and slab. So since Iran was not able to export those material, so that region also started to import from China. So China, especially for the raw material, billets and slab, it's in very good position. So even, for example, slab prices is higher than hot rolled coil prices. And but we see the stock level is high mainly on the flat product side, especially hot rolled coils.
Actually, that's high. In fact, 170 million tons. Actually, that's a very good point. Even though the product inventories are low, their raw material inventory is extremely high. And that is obviously something alarming. Yeah.
Like this strategic stockpiling which the Chinese have made.
Looks like, yes.
Oh.
Yes.
So we get to the next question. Do you see any changes on the export of billets and slabs from China?
Okay, for billets, when we look at China for billets, the shipment time that we've been receiving is an offer for July shipment. And by the time that received by Middle East, Turkey, easily 25 days, 1 month. So which is also clearly showing that the China is fully booked for the billets. For slab, yes, China had a significant demand for the slab, especially to Southeast Asia, Turkey as well. And but we don't see much transaction from China to Turkey because the shipment time and the price level is high. Today, 525, we can say CNF to Turkey. We can say 515-20 to Middle East. But there are serious also demand from Middle East as well, because Middle East, some of the countries or some of the company, they were importing from Iran, and they lost that channel as well. Now it's all gone to China. No, that we don't. No.
What is expected is really the increase in the slabs more than the billets. There's a huge demand. What they're thinking is in Q2, there will be a big increase in slabs. Billets will probably stay the same.
Yeah, but we've also heard that there should be a new export license policy in China for billets and slabs. Is that correct or not correct?
Not that we know. No.
Okay.
But I mean, usually between slab and the hot rolled coils, we are seeing safely $40 to $50 price differences. But now slab is higher than hot rolled coil prices. So there are really huge demand to going to China. So this time, China is not the player, is not going to be the player, is affecting the market negatively.
Okay, so that was the part of China. Last question of that. Any comments? And we go to EU. Not that much of questions, but some of them. The legal responsibility for CBAM declarations rests on the EU importer, but the data must come from the non-EU producer. How must European traders structure their purchase in 26 to ensure they aren't left holding the financial bag if the supplier's data is rejected by the EU verifier? Well, here we can say the only chance to not fall into that trap or to carry that back is to use the default value, because otherwise you're definitely running the risk. Of course, you can rely on the numbers provided by the supplier abroad with his EPD number and an end. But what we have realized already is that the EPD certificates, which are issued and distributed by a lot of producers in the world, do not fit to the mathematics as set up by Brussels on the CBAM calculation. So it is seems to be a big process of where to put which number into what column in the Excel sheet and so on and so forth, and then to really get the right number. Of course, it can be that it's only a very a difference of a few kilograms, but it can also be easily that it's quite a bigger number, and then you have the burden, and you don't know whether all these informations will be approved by Brussels and what the verifier in the end of the day will find out. And so in this phase of, let's say, uncertainty, if you want to protect yourself, yeah, you have to use the default value. Whether you can make a business with that is a different question.
I have another suggestion. As traders, you can use a CBAM indemnity clause on your contracts, which means you pass the supplier the liability to the supplier of the mill. So you go to a mill, and when you sign a contract, put that in your clause, saying that if it is not exactly what it was that you have demanded, something happens, you're liable for it. This will be something that you traders should definitely think about using in your contracts.
We have done that, and I can tell you 99.9% have flatly refused to even look at it. I said we have no idea how Brussels is going to decide. We have no idea what the verifying company is doing. We have no idea how finally the numbers are fitting each other. This is a black box. We don't take a risk. So either.
So who's going to take the risk? Trader? How much is trader?
Trader.
The trader is making small percentage of it. Is going to take the risk of 15–10%.
That's why I said then you have to calculate it in, and then either the price fits or it doesn't fit.
But if it doesn't fit, what do you do?
If it doesn't fit, you have no business.
I mean, we can't. I'm just talking for all you traders. You can't take such risk and live with it. You have to train or discuss with your mills and do not really accept such clause that is so much against you. They should know what their CBAM rate is. They should be liable for it. Why should you take that risk? You should never take that risk unless you can find an insurance, liability insurance, to cover that, which I think that will be so expensive that it's not really going to be helpful to you all.
I think what is essential is that you have a dialogue with your supplier. And this dialogue should not just be, let's say, the contractual terms, but it also should be, does he support you on the evaluation and the verification of the CBAM numbers? If he's starting already and say, well, no, not really, then you have to question yourself, is he really convinced about his own numbers or isn't he? If he is convinced, he will say, okay, come on, this is really the number, I made it to the best of our assumptions and we got already verified, send these people over, let's do a joint verification. So there are ways and means, but it is a it's a coordination. And
after the dialogue, if they trust their numbers, they should take the
then
risk,
they should take.
not the traders.
No.
This is what I recommend to y'all.
Do you guys have any ideas, or did you had already experience on that one?
What do you guys think? Do you guys willing to take the risk? Go ahead, please. Can you say?
We are the producer side. So, but the problem is that in EU side, stockholders don't even believe that default values are correct, and the Brussels may change the default values retrospectively in the back. So that's a bit.
Yeah, there is uncertainty all over the place. That's unfortunately, but probably it's being done by purpose. So to delay clearness as long as possible. Thanks a lot. So then we get to the next question for Europe. Despite a lot of uncertainties about new trade measures in Europe from July, are there any preliminary discussions or softer measures proposed for countries, suppliers having FTA agreements with the EU? Well, here I can say that we are not aware about any. And considering the trade agreements which has just recently been made with Mercosur or Vietnam or India, you will always notice that there was steel completely excluded. So steel was not a part of that deal. Steel was running under a different category with the same safeguard measures, with the same duties and everything like we see for the countries where Europe has no agreement with. So based on that, we are not aware if any one of you guys have any idea or have heard anything.
Show the preliminary document, which is going to, was quasi-approved on the 22nd, which is now going on the 8th of May for the next round, and then on the 22nd of May, allegedly will be voted in. Doesn't show anything. Actually, it looks like they've put alloyed and unalloyed products in the same quota. So the 18 million is going to be even, more so let's say stainless steel will be competing with carbon hot rolled coil for the same quota. At this point, that's what it looks like today.
I'm talking about quotas. The main issue is, I think it's on the works that the quotas will be halved. You will have almost 50%, 48% reduction in the quotas in European imports, which means that, and one more thing they added to it, which is what the US did, of course. They raised from 25% to 50%. So really, it's going to be tough to export anything to Europe with the quotas and the 50%, sitting on right there. By the way, same thing happened in Canada and obviously in the US as well. There's no quota.
Please.
So may I ask a question here, since we are discussing the reduction of export to Europe. So in your opinion, what Turkish producers are going to do? Because long is one thing, but also Turkey is a big supplier of flat steel to Europe. Where do you think Turkish mills can reallocate material, or they will have to cut production? I wish we could.
Well, honestly, we get to this question at a later stage, but yeah, we can answer it already now because it is a part of the question we had here. Where can the mills go to? And honestly, we right now we see only countries with no trade restrictions, like Africa, like somewhere Middle East or whatever, countries like Albania. So those countries where there is no anti-dumping, no trade measurements, whatever, there is still something to do. But of course, Turkey has also a huge disadvantage, meanwhile, on the cost sector. That was not the case for many, many years. They were good in labor work at cheap prices, the low energy costs and Also, the inflation was and
anti-dumping, import taxes.
and so on. And this is all wasted now. So you have very high working costs, labor costs. Your energy costs are flying through the roof. Your inflation was extremely high. So that all made Turkey over the last years quite uncompetitive.
The short answer for you is they have to cut production.
Yeah.
But these productions that they have, there's not enough markets out there that is not as much protected and restricted for Turkish steel. Well,
it depends where it will bring the prices up, because
I mean, like, if Turkey has to cut production, it's like a common case that production in Turkey will become more expensive.
Yeah, okay.
Even more.
Yeah.
In a way, but keep in mind, Turkey is the largest importer of scrap. So, if you think about on the cost structure, scrap is probably 60% of their cost. So if they cut that, they're really cutting the import of scrap, and they can continue using only domestic scrap, which is much cheaper.
Good point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would like to come back to the quotas, which we just touched, and the 50%, which you mentioned. So that is currently the outlook for 1st of July. The funny thing is that with all these quotas, I hope you are aware about that, you have country-specific quotas, where one country has one quota which it can utilize. If there is 1 mil, 2 mil, 3 mil, doesn't matter. And then you have the so-called all-other category, where all those countries which are not having a country-specific quota are listed. The funny thing is that for the last 2 years almost, there are, in the rebar category, there are countries like Bosnia-Herzegovina, like Moldova, who are not producing rebars anymore. And these two countries alone represent 250,000 tons quota per year, which cannot be used. So that means they are reducing by 50% everyone. At the same time, there are producers in there who are reduced by 100% because they are not producing anymore and not delivering anymore to Europe. So that means that the quota from originally, let's say, 100% is meanwhile then down to 35 to 40%. So
does the quota require melt and pour, or is it just production for European?
Right now, it's production, but it will come now to melt and pour.
Because if not, then they can buy from somewhere else and produce it and give it with 250,000 tons. Is a lot.
It's a lot, yeah. So, and I think we've seen that also on wire rod, and wire rod was also similar high number. Where is this? Can't find it right now, but was also for wire rod was quite a high number of non-usable quota. So that all makes it extremely difficult for the domestic producers and the downstream industry, because if you are a mesh producer in Germany right now, where do you buy?
Which countries are FTA countries? Which countries are these countries?
FTA, free trade agreement countries. This is Norway, for example. I think it's Switzerland, but even Switzerland has a quota. Norway doesn't. Norway has a different status. And free trade agreement countries are like Mercosur now. Mercosur has a free trade agreement, but not for steel. That's a funny thing.
Okay.
So that was the last question on Europe. We come to raw materials. And here we have the famous question, current spread between scrap price and rebar price. And well, it's of course quite diverse from in which country you're looking for which area, which territory. So, but just giving the number, let's say on basis Turkey.
Yeah, well, if you compare it to Turkey, look, I don't want to give numbers, but it should be around $400, the scrap price, which you all know. and the rebar is around $600, approximately. So really, the spread is $200, and it's been like that for years. So sometimes I've seen it come down to 180, sometimes it goes to 220, but overall, that is the same margin that these guys are working with. And we traders are forcing the mills not to go any higher than that anyway.
You
I agree. So we always say no inflation on our steel business. So unfortunately, the conversion is in the level of 40 years, in the same level. Although energy cost is increasing, labor cost is increasing, but unfortunately, we don't see that reflection on the selling prices. Sorry? Yes. But unfortunately, the producer is not able to reflect that cost into their selling prices.
Yeah, actually, if you think about it, when the energy cost is higher and the labor cost is higher, especially for Turkey, the one gets squeezed is the mills. Their margins are a lot less than they used to be a few years ago. So it is to their disadvantage, but obviously, market is market. They have to just live with it.
Getting to the next question. Could you provide general trend for scrap prices for the next 5 years? Are you bullish or bearish on the ferrous scrap market? Well, we said yesterday in the preparation meeting we will all polish our crystal ball and to give a prediction for 5 years, but then we wouldn't sit here, but we would sit anywhere else.
Well, in general, you can say it's bullish because the general trend is people are trying to stay away from the blast furnace and using iron ore because of the environmental reasons. So the trend is the new mills and also the cost. Obviously, there's a huge cost difference from the blast furnace to the electric arc furnace. So it is because of the electric arc furnace. The scrap price will continue to go. And one more thing, I noticed that the availability of scrap is also reducing. So because of that, I think you will see that the demand for that one will keep going up. So if you're a scrap producer, you're in bullish market.
Yeah, we also think CBAM will give a further kick to the prices and for the demand in scrap, and we see that China is more and more moving over to electric arc furnaces, 40-50 million tons, which they brought on the road in this production route now. So we see other mills in Far East who are basing now on induction furnaces, and also in Europe, more and more people will move to this product. Also in other countries, in Africa and so on, every new mill will be built on electric arc and or induction furnace. So to believe really in a slowing of the demand for scrap or even a crash in the scrap price, I really don't see it. Unless they really consider it as waste.
Well, this morning we have heard this gentleman talk about the hydrogen being used instead of even the carbon. To me, I thought that was a very expensive process, and I thought that it was not gonna be in the near future, maybe future, but not near future. Does anyone in the audience know more about this hydrogen usage for steel making and its cost comparative to this blast furnace and the electric, especially electric arc furnace? You guys have any information on that one? I'm just curious to know. Okay, we'll have to study more. All right.
So, billet versus scrap for the electric arc furnace, and versus electric arc furnace versus BOF in terms of production cost? Who do you like to be for the next 6 months?
I think the next 6 months, you still have the blast furnace advantage, but it's going down as we go, especially with the CBAM in Europe, and the rest of the world is waking up on the same environmental protection. So it will change, but right now I still think, blast furnace. What do you think?
I think it's pretty much depends on the market. Yeah, in Europe, I would certainly prefer to be electric arc furnace producer simply because of the CBAM matter. But in countries
Still today. Wow.
But of course, for in countries like in India, what we just learned. If you produce with blast furnace and you have no protection or no restriction on CO2 emission and because you just produce, then I would rather prefer to be a blast oxygen furnace producer because I think the run on scrap, as we just explained, will become much higher with all these environmental restraints and requests. So scrap will definitely increase, and iron ore will not have this pressure.
Yeah.
Any different opinion?
I think in these uncertain times, there are few mills present in China, Russia, and Brazil, for instance, that they do have normally mini blast furnace, an electric arc furnace, and they charge liquid hot metal into the electric arc furnace. So when the scrap prices are low, they shut down the blast furnace. These are not blast furnaces so complicated like the big ones. And when the iron ore is cheap again, they go back to that route. So they are flexible mini mills.
Yeah.
So I think these ones are the best setup for the moment. And also about the CBAM, I don't think there's any default value existent that differentiates charcoal blast furnace to coke blast furnace. And in many times, the charcoal blast furnace, they have a eucalyptus farm behind that recovers the CO that was emitted. And this is not taken into account by the CBAM, and this will hurt a lot some green steelmaking companies.
Of course, it's good to have two options, but it's very expensive to have two options. I mean, Chinese, I know for years China had advantage for that because they had both. But if you want to start something new, or if you have to say either or, if you have it, fine. But if you don't, you have to pick one.
Yeah.
Okay, we continue with miscellaneous questions. And the first one is Far East freight market trend, effects of the war on the freight markets and shipments.
Well, freight rates is a major concern for all our traders because the mills give us the material and it's up to us to really deliver. And freight rates did go up dramatically, especially after the Iranian invasion or Iranian war. We have another issue, which is the Strait Hormuz is when it's closed, there are certain cargoes that's stuck in the Gulf, can't get out, also a problem. And the last thing is I heard that the bunker prices went up a lot more than the gas prices or the oil prices. So if the bunker prices go twice the rate than the oil prices, obviously the shipping naturally will be more expensive. So it's a big problem for us, especially the ones who have already sold on certain assumptions. That includes us, by the way. And We have to live with it, and it's tough, and the customer doesn't care.
Regarding the shipment, what we see is because unfortunately the war also, the biggest affection of the war is in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And Middle East market for China is representing about 11% of their export. So roughly we are seeing 50 million ton. So that shipments are affected. For example, when we want to ship our material to Saudi Arabia, to Dammam, which is, as you know, is part of Saudi Arabia, which we were not able to ship it. So what we've been doing is shipping the material west part of Saudi Arabia to Jeddah. From Jeddah to Dammam, the land transportation is $45 to $50. Even some of the Dubai customers were waiting for their shipment. So we were looking for an option in Oman and also in Saudi Arabia as well, or the port which is relatively far away from the Iran area to ship that material. So freight prices, yes, increase. Before the war, we were seeing for the 50,000 ton vessel, $38, $35 to $38. Now we are easily seeing $45, $48. And also, of course, the owner of the vessel is having the hesitation to go to some port in Middle East.
Well, because of insurance reasons.
Yes.
So, given the current volatility with regions, do you foresee as the primary drivers of long products demand, which region do you foresee as the primary drivers for the long product demand in 2026? Here we have also identified
Southeast Asia, I think the major one.
and still United States, surprisingly, despite
Well, actually,
quote.
I know it's something that you want to think about, but really the infrastructure projects in America are somewhat going on, but the residential construction is very much, affected by the high interest rates, and I don't think the interest rates are coming down anytime soon. So really there is not a whole lot of construction going on in the U.S. other than the old projects and the few, well, I shouldn't say few, a lot of AI projects, but AI projects really are straightly getting their supply from the domestic mills. So U.S. is not going to be the major market for it. I was going to say Middle East, but of course now Middle East, you can't ship anything to Middle East. That would be the problem with the Middle East. Otherwise, the growth still is in the Middle East with the big projects in Saudi Arabia and all that.
But this is, I think, a nice question for you guys here in the audience. What do you see as a market, as a potential market in 2026? Taking into account the current Iran situation, taking into account the trade measurements in Europe, and so what do you foresee as a potential market who can absorb some of the Turkish material, for example, as a driver? Not as a market only, but really as a driver.
I don't have the answer, but I have a question on top of that, maybe to see how you see that. Since the last changes in Venezuela happened, have you seen any change in trading? Is it now, are companies trading now with Venezuela? Have you seen anything different since the intervention?
I have actually, right after the situation, I used to buy from Venezuela a lot. I used to spend a lot of time there. And they contacted us. They said, we're ready to export. What do you want to export? Certain items. I said, okay, we're buyers. And I'm still waiting.
No, but I have no experience with Venezuela for the last 20 years, so I really cannot give a comment on that. Hussein?
we've been seeing some shipments from Venezuela to Turkey, to China as well. And recently we've been not hearing.
No.
But as shipments of iron ore, not finished products, I assume, or finished products.
Scrap,
Scrap.
HBI.
HBI, billets, and slabs, actually, if you want to know.
Right. So, next question. How do you see the current situation regarding freight and shipping costs? I think that one we just answered already under the second question. So we continue with the next one. Expected reduction in quotas in Europe and higher tariffs for imported volumes above the quota will potentially hurt Asian mills hard. Where do you expect the surplus of steel products may go? So again, a question of where all the steel should find a home. In regard of Asian countries, especially China, but also Vietnam, India, and so on, although India is not that big in export, as we learned. But I would say Africa and Latin America is probably for Asian countries a potential destination where they can offset a certain amount. On the other side, what they certainly can also do from Asia is to just shift from finished products to semis, either billets or slabs, or they go on the higher scale and really for higher qualified material and not for the basic material.
If the European quotas are reduced by 50%, nothing can supply. I mean, nothing can really take the place of Europe's quotas in Africa or in South America. So then there is really a problem. I think the only solution would be cut production.
Yeah, the funny thing is that I've heard from customers and consumers that despite even these tariffs, which we have right now is 25%, that even though some prices have already reached a level where you can do business again. So very similar to what you had in America, when the 25% duty came up, the mills increased the price by 23%, and so you could literally do business again. So whether this will be seen in Europe quickly and in this to this extent, I don't know. And with 50%, of course, it's even more questionable. But ultimately, if you need the material and if you're able to pass this price increase on to your final customer, you can do it. Otherwise, you have to either search for another place of production and go outside of Europe, what a lot of companies are seriously thinking about, because they cannot get the required material any longer. As I just said, if you are a mesh producer, for Christ's sake, where do you buy your wire rod as a raw material for that one? You're out.
So no, actually, the price will go up. That's what happens.
And that will.
It's a supply-demand situation. Okay.
So we are coming to actually the last question in the row, and that is a forecast which we traditionally have here. What is your forecast and outlook about construction market demand supply balance in each major region of the world for the next 3 to 6 months? So Latin America and Central America, can we possibly?
Well, actually, Latin America and Central America both have stable economy. So I don't think you will see an increase in usage of steel, but they are consumers of steel and they will continue to do so. Because imagine they have tourism, they have mining, there's all the industries that they're working with are still valid and doing well.
Well, then we get to Europe as item number C. So in Europe, the situation is a bit blurry. In July, new quotas and regulations will be in power, and nobody can currently predict the real impact. So the demand is still not good, and the latest development in the Middle East are another threat to the European producers as energy costs is climbing up again. And in particular in Germany, one of the EU engines, the GDP is stagnant for this year. The government has no ability to pump more money into the industry and into the economy to increase the construction by any means. We have made this 500 billion special debt, which we will partly use for defense, but also a big part of that was actually reserved for infrastructure projects like schools, highways, and God knows what. But it appears that even that money is not enough to really invest that, and it will take time with all the applications and approvals. And so right now, the demand situation is not gloomy, it's not great, and we expect that we will have a downwards trend in the construction in Germany and probably in Europe in 2026. And so prices will probably climb because of lack of imports, but that will have another effect that more and more projects will be pulled back because of inflation prices.
As for Middle East, actually, guys, it's a sad situation what's going on there, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. When the war is over, there's a restructuring or rebuilding all Gaza, huge project. In fact, there was an estimate about between $700 to $200 billion investment needed to just bring it to a living level. Also, Iranian production, which was huge. Iran used to be a major producer of steel, and that will be affected. And I think you will see that much tonnage out of the market. So there is, we made all these pessimistic notes, but unfortunately, war changes a lot. And so lack of Iranian capacity will make a difference in Southeast Asia. It'll make a difference probably in Turkey too. I don't know how much Turkey was importing from Iran, but definitely in the Gulf nations, they do import from Iran. And I understand that their steel mill has also been affected with the shelling or bombardment. So there's some good news for the steel producers from this very sad situation that hopefully will end soon.
So, Africa, is there anyone having an idea about African market?
Africa, what we see is especially there are also some new productions coming up, induction furnaces. And more looks like Africa will need of scrap. Usually the shipments are on the container basis, but Africa is definitely the next potential demand area, continent actually. So definitely that area needs the infrastructure, and that potential is there.
But then the next question may come up if more and more production will be built up in Africa, when you will have the first trade measurement to prevent imports. So
Possible.
it's an ongoing circle.
Of course, banking is a major problem there too. How are you going to get your money from Africa is an issue as well.
So, Southeast Asia, more or less we have touched China. We have had this long report from this gentleman on India. So unless anyone has more to say on that one,
Mr. Pandali,
Mr. Pandali.
I think we can get some information from you as usual. Please.
Things are good. If you saw the charts with the OECD gentleman had put up, after a slight blip in 2026, 27 is going to go up again. So if at a macro level it is good, then I would assume that even as far as the steel business is concerned, that will also go up accordingly. I have no concerns, so to say, about any downtrend in India. It will be the reverse, actually.
Thank you.
Mr. Pandali, what about Middle East, in Dubai region?
Middle East, as far as very interesting question. I was looking at the way it is framed. Today, in the Middle East, particularly in Dubai, Oman, and the surrounding countries, demand exceeds supply. That is for two reasons. One is the large number of infrastructure projects, and two is that temporarily there is a shortage of material because of all the logistics constraints. So as it stands, demand is exceeding supply. I expect that, I don't know whether it is 3 or 6 or 9 months, the situation will reverse. Why will it reverse? Because after the crisis, there is a little bit of a hit to the confidence of the area, particularly UAE, in terms of, the image of it being a sort of very safe and very, it's away from everything else which is happening in the world. That has been knocked a little bit. It will take time before and UAE depends a lot on overseas people coming in and investing there. People from India, from Russia, from Ukraine, from England, from everywhere else. I think that will stop. And I think as a result, construction activity, I expect, will start slowing down in another 3 to 4 months. When the war is over, the supply, which is currently choked, will loosen up. And I could very well see a situation in 6 to 8 months where the current demand-supply balance is reversed, where the supply is more than demand.
Thank you. Well, that was the last question on the list. Any additional question from the audience?
Yeah, I'm Andy Master from Houston, Texas. Just wanted to share with you all the demand from my customers. They have started coming back. They're all feeling confident. And so we thought demand was slow, and it was for the last 6 months, but they're back now. And not a lot of people have bought. We import rebar mainly. Not a lot of people have bought futures, so people, they're looking for product, and it's a good sign. I'm quite bullish. I had a question for Mr. Baisal. On the rebar imports into USA, this year we've been importing almost exclusively from Korea, and that's not, I've never seen material from Korea. What do you think about Turkey supplying rebar to USA and the other countries of the world?
It's all related to anti-dumping rate. Korea has 0 and Turkey has 7 to 10%, and that makes the difference. So it's really Koreans without any duty, and of course, Koreans can come to West Coast a lot easier than the Turks. Turks are only dealing with the East Coast. Koreans come West Coast and Gulf and East Coast, so that's why. Yeah, you're right. If you look at it, almost 90% is coming from Korea now.
Do you think Turkey will be back? They were the traditional source of rebound to USA.
Not with those anti-dumping rates, and until I don't think so. For coil rebar?
Korean.
No, they don't have any anti-dumping. Koreans don't have any anti-dumping. Say again?
But you foresee it? He was asking if you foresee.
Yes. Anytime there's a surge, there is protection. So yes, it's coming. It will be soon. Unfortunately.
Any other comment? Question? Yeah, if this is not the case, then I say thank you very much for your contribution, for listening, and for having you here. And yeah, then I wish you a nice day in Amsterdam, hopefully outside, and maybe you can experience a bit from this birthday today, and we will see each other hopefully tomorrow morning for the wrap-up meeting. Thank you very much and enjoy the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.